Yo, what's good? Welcome back to another episode of Levitation and Sunday series. And today we back with a good one. We back with an amazing one. We back with a banger. You know what I'm saying? Let's get into it. I hope it bless you. One common misconception of the faith is that God is solely used for material blessings. You have some believers that only serve God for what they hope He can give them. And on the other side of that, you have those believers that believe God isn't really concerned about financial and material blessings here right now, because we're going to receive our reward in the life to come. So according to them, because God isn't concerned with it, we shouldn't be concerned with it. So which is the right mindset? In order to find that answer, I had to break things down all the way. So here we go. We know in Genesis, humanity was placed in paradise. Anything that we needed, we had access to. We had access to shelter. We had access to food. They had no knowledge or shame about their nakedness, so there was no need for clothing. When you think about it, the Garden of Eden, paradise, represented true freedom, true peace, and true provision. Well, since Adam and Eve decided to obey, they got kicked out. They lost access to paradise, but most importantly, they lost access to the source that provided paradise, which is God. And God's initial intention was for humanity to dwell with Him in paradise. But when humanity decided to exile God, we lost access to paradise. In Genesis chapter 3, verses 17 through 19, it says, "And to the man he said, since you listened to your wife and ate from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat, the ground is cursed because of you. All your life you will struggle to scratch a living from it. It will grow thorns and thistles for you, though you will eat of its grain. By the sweat of your brow will you have food to eat until you return to the ground from which you were made." In that scripture, we see the result of the curse placed on humanity because of humanity's disobedience. And essentially that curse is saying that you will have to work for your survival. In order to eat, you're going to have to work hard in order to till the ground. Whereas in the Garden of Eden, everything was freely accessible. But now you have to put in that work just for a tiny portion of paradise. And that is what we've been trying to do ever since. We have to work hard in order to be able to survive. We have to work in order to get food. We have to work in order to get water. Water is supposed to be free, but we have to work hard in order to get the finances to be able to survive on our basic needs. Well, it wasn't always like that, and it was never intended to be that way. And the reason why we work hard today is to get a piece of that paradise back. But remember, it wasn't paradise that we lost. More importantly, we lost the source to that paradise, which is God. This is important that we get this foundation because it's not about paradise itself, but it's all about the source. So some of you may be wondering, what does have to do with money? Well, since we have to work hard to get a piece of paradise, we've replaced the source of paradise with money. Simply put, money is our source, which means money has become our God. Whatever you see as a source of your provision, you would treat as your God. If you look at different cultures, you will see that they had a sun god, they had a rain god, they had fertility god, they had gods to represent what they were in need of. So they saw those things as a source of their provision. Our culture has done the same thing with money. And I think we know how God feels about us serving another God. But just in case we don't, Yeshua will make it plain and clear. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, he says, "No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money." Simply put, you cannot be devoted to money and God at the same time. Your love has to be for one or the other. And your obedience determines what you love more. What you mean obedience to money? How can someone be obedient to money? Are you willing to go against the will of God to acquire finances? Some of us have a specific price. Are you going after money in order to make it easier for you to live any kind of life that you want to live? Because you feel like with finances, nobody can tell you nothing. Some of us, we are. So if we're willing to compromise our devotion to God, that means that we love money more. And if you love money more, we got a problem. One of the most misquoted scriptures is money is the root of all evil. That scripture does not say that. In 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 10, it says, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people, craving money, have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with with many sorrows. It's the love of money that's damaging, not money itself. It's the craving of it, the longing of it. Some of us are craving and longing for it so much that we will even see God as a source to give us money so we can do whatever we want with it. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 5, it says, their minds are corrupt and they have turned their backs on the truth. For them, a show of godliness is just a way to become wealthy. You have people today that are in the ministry, that are serving God, that's in it just for finance. You have some pastors and ministers that their whole message on Sunday is about how you can prosper financially without mentioning any kinds of lifestyle change, without mentioning any kind of sacrifice that we have to dedicate ourselves to God. But your whole sermon going to be about prospering and finances. Scripture tells us that these types of people are corrupt. But if we continue, it says, yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we have brought nothing with us when we came into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. Paul is telling us that true contentment is wealth. He basically said if we have our fundamental needs taken care of, we should be content. We should have peace. We should have freedom. We should have provision. Isn't that the same description of the Garden of Eden? If you think about it, they had all access to the food and the water that they needed. And then they didn't even have need for clothing. And that was considered paradise. That lets me know that we have to check our motives, our reasons why we want money so much. But does that mean that we shouldn't be wealthy? No. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 18, it says, tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. Our wealth should be used to do good and be generous to other people, not for us to hold on and to store up things only for ourselves. You have to really analyze the reason why some of us, majority of us, really want money. And that's really to secure our sense of paradise, to make ourselves feel good, to boost our ego, make us feel like we don't have to be dependent on anybody's rules but our own. But all of those reasons are the very reason why humanity lost access to paradise in the first place. Our pursuit shouldn't be for our own independence. Our pursuit should be towards God. And the more that we pursue God, that's the more our hearts are going to change to obey God, even with our wealth. God has no problems with us seeking Him for provision. In fact, He encourages it. But our hearts, our intentions, our reason why we seeking it will determine if God will provide it for us. Here's another side note. Just because wealth is generated don't mean that it's a blessing from God. But you can really genuinely tell if your wealth is a blessing from God when it not only benefits you, but is used to progress His kingdom further. It's used to help the people in the faith. It's used to spread His message. It's used to give Him glory. So yes, we can have access to paradise right now. But we have to remember that our access to paradise only comes through the source, which is God, not money. So yes, God does bless us with financial and material blessings here right on earth. And He does want us to come to Him for those things. But if we're coming to Him for those things more than we're coming to Him for Him, then our priorities aren't in the right place. And if our priorities aren't in the right place, how can we think that God is on our side? Chase the source to paradise more than paradise itself. This is Levitation, where we're reaching our highest potential. Stay blessed.